The Vietnamese dong continues to attract significant attention across global currency markets as investors, exporters, and international businesses monitor Vietnam's economic progress and its long-term monetary outlook. In recent weeks, discussion within online financial communities has intensified after renewed speculations suggested that the Vietnamese dong could eventually experience a gradual appreciation rather than the dramatic overnight revaluation that some currency enthusiasts have predicted for years. While rumors continue to circulate across social media and currency forums, financial analysts emphasize that Vietnam's currency policy remains focused on stability, economic competitiveness, and sustainable growth, rather than sudden exchange rate shocks. One of the latest talking points among currency observers centers on the belief that the Vietnamese dong may no longer be viewed through the same lens as the Iraqi dinar. For years, certain speculative communities linked the future of the dong to expectations surrounding other emerging market currencies, particularly the Iraqi dinar. According to recent commentary circulating among investors, some observers now argue that Vietnam's currency path appears increasingly independent, and that any future movement in the dong would likely occur through gradual market appreciation rather than a rapid overnight adjustment. Economists generally note that Vietnam and Iraq operate under very different economic structures. Vietnam possesses a diversified export-driven economy supported by manufacturing, technology production, agriculture, logistics, and foreign direct investment. Iraq, by contrast, relies heavily on oil revenues. Because of these differences, analysts caution against assuming that developments affecting one currency will automatically influence another. Vietnam's economic performance over the past several years has strengthened confidence among international investors. The country has emerged as a major manufacturing hub in Asia, attracting multinational corporations seeking to diversify supply chains. Investments in electronics, renewable energy infrastructure, and industrial production have contributed to strong export growth. These developments have helped reinforce confidence in Vietnam's long-term economic prospects and have supported demand for the country's currency. Currency strategists explain that exchange rate appreciation typically occurs when economic fundamentals improve over time. Factors such as rising productivity, increased foreign investment, stronger exports, controlled inflation, and healthy foreign exchange reserves can gradually strengthen a currency's position. However, policymakers often balance these benefits against the needs of exporters, who rely on competitive pricing in international markets. Vietnam's central bank has historically pursued a managed approach to exchange rate policy. Rather than allowing abrupt swings in the currency's value, authorities generally seek to maintain stability while responding to changing economic conditions. This strategy has helped support investor confidence and reduce volatility during periods of global economic uncertainty. Recent market discussions have sparked renewed interest in the concept of a floating Vietnamese dong. In foreign exchange terminology, a floating currency is one whose value is determined primarily by market forces such as supply and demand. Some analysts believe Vietnam could continue moving toward greater exchange rate flexibility over the long term as its financial markets mature and become more integrated with the global economy. Supporters of this view argue that a gradual appreciation process could benefit the Vietnamese economy by reflecting stronger economic fundamentals. Instead of a single dramatic revaluation event, the currency could potentially experience incremental gains over many years as economic growth continues and foreign investment expands. Such a scenario would resemble the way some assets and currencies strengthen gradually through sustained demand rather than through sudden policy announcements. Financial experts frequently caution investors against expecting overnight transformations in major currencies. Large-scale revaluations can create significant disruptions for exporters, importers, banks, and businesses. As a result, governments and central banks often prefer predictable and manageable adjustments that allow markets to adapt gradually. Vietnam's export sector remains one of the country's most important economic engines. Manufacturers across industries including electronics, textiles, footwear, machinery, and consumer goods compete in international markets. A sudden and substantial increase in the value of the dong could potentially make Vietnamese exports more expensive for foreign buyers. Therefore, policymakers generally weigh currency considerations carefully against broader economic objectives. Foreign direct investment continues to play a major role in Vietnam's economic development story. International companies have committed billions of dollars to manufacturing facilities, industrial parks, technology centers, and infrastructure projects throughout the country. Investors are often attracted by Vietnam's growing workforce, strategic location, improving infrastructure, and expanding trade relationships. As investment flows increase, demand for local currency can also rise. Companies establishing operations in Vietnam must conduct transactions, pay employees, purchase materials, and engage with local suppliers. These activities contribute to ongoing demand for the dong and support broader economic activity. The country's participation in major international trade agreements has further enhanced its position within global supply chains. Access to key markets has helped Vietnamese exporters expand their reach while attracting additional investment from companies seeking long-term growth opportunities in Southeast Asia. Inflation remains another important factor influencing currency performance. Economists generally view price stability as a critical component of long-term currency strength. When inflation remains under control, purchasing power is preserved, and confidence in the currency can increase. Vietnam's monetary authorities continue monitoring inflation trends while balancing growth objectives and financial stability considerations. Global market conditions also influence the performance of emerging market currencies. Interest rates, commodity prices, international trade patterns, and investor sentiment can all affect currency valuations. The Vietnamese dong, like many currencies, operates within a broader global financial environment, where developments in major economies can create ripple effects across international markets. Recent discussions among currency enthusiasts have often focused on comparisons between the dong and digital assets such as Bitcoin. While the two are fundamentally different, supporters of the gradual appreciation theory sometimes use Bitcoin as an example of how value can increase steadily over extended periods rather than through a single event. Economists, however, stress that national currencies and digital assets operate under entirely different frameworks and should not be viewed as directly comparable investments. National currencies are influenced by economic output, monetary policy, trade balances, government decisions, and international financial conditions. Digital assets, meanwhile, often experience volatility driven by market sentiment, adoption trends, and speculative activity. Therefore, analysts recommend caution when drawing direct parallels between the two. Vietnam's growing middle class continues to contribute to domestic economic expansion. Rising incomes, increasing consumer spending, and urbanization have supported demand across numerous sectors. Strong domestic consumption can complement export growth and create a more balanced economic foundation. Infrastructure development remains another key area of focus. Investments in transportation networks, ports, logistics facilities, and energy systems are designed to improve efficiency and support future growth. Enhanced infrastructure can increase productivity, attract additional investment, and strengthen the country's competitive position in global markets. Banking sector modernization has also received considerable attention. Improvements in digital payments, financial technology adoption, and banking services have contributed to a more dynamic financial environment. As financial systems evolve, they can facilitate economic activity and improve capital allocation throughout the economy. International organizations frequently highlight Vietnam as one of Asia's notable growth stories. Consistent economic expansion, increasing integration into global trade networks, and ongoing structural reforms have attracted attention from investors around the world. While challenges remain, many analysts view the country's long-term outlook as positive. Currency market participants often debate whether economic success automatically leads to significant currency appreciation. In reality, exchange rates are influenced by numerous interconnected variables. Strong growth can support a currency, but policymakers may also prioritize export competitiveness, employment, and financial stability. As a result, economic progress does not necessarily translate into rapid currency gains. The idea that the Vietnamese dong could appreciate gradually over time aligns more closely with traditional economic models than predictions of dramatic overnight revaluation. Historical examples show that currencies often strengthen through a combination of sustained growth, rising productivity, and increasing investor confidence, rather than through sudden transformative events. Some market observers believe that Vietnam's growing role in global manufacturing could contribute to long-term support for the dong. As international companies diversify supply chains and expand operations within the country, demand for Vietnamese goods and services may continue increasing. This trend could create favorable conditions for economic expansion and broader financial development. At the same time, policymakers must navigate a complex global environment. Trade tensions, geopolitical developments, fluctuations in energy prices, and changes in international interest rates can all influence economic performance. Maintaining stability while adapting to evolving conditions remains a central challenge for governments and central banks worldwide. Export performance continues to be closely monitored by investors assessing Vietnam's outlook. Strong export growth can contribute to foreign currency inflows and support economic activity. However, maintaining competitiveness requires careful management of costs, productivity, infrastructure, and exchange rate policy. Tourism has also become an increasingly important contributor to economic activity. As international travel continues recovering and expanding, tourism-related revenues can provide additional support for growth. Foreign visitors generate demand for local goods and services, while contributing foreign exchange earnings. Education and workforce development remain central to Vietnam's long-term economic strategy. Investments in skills training, technology education, and human capital development can enhance productivity and support higher value industries. These factors are often viewed as essential components of sustainable economic advancement. Technology manufacturing represents one of the most significant transformations within the Vietnamese economy. Production of electronics, smartphones, components, and other advanced products has expanded substantially over the past decade. Continued growth in these sectors could help support export revenues and attract further investment. Many professional economists emphasize the importance of distinguishing between speculation and official policy. While rumors regarding currency movements often generate significant online discussion, actual exchange rate developments typically depend on economic conditions, market dynamics, and decisions made by monetary authorities. Investors are therefore encouraged to rely on credible economic data and official information when evaluating currency prospects. The Vietnamese dong remains one of Southeast Asia's most closely watched currencies because it reflects the broader story of Vietnam's economic transformation. The country's transition into a major manufacturing and export center has generated substantial interest among international investors seeking exposure to emerging market growth opportunities. As discussions continue regarding the future direction of the dong, many analysts believe the most realistic scenario involves gradual evolution rather than dramatic overnight change. Economic development tends to occur over years rather than days, and currency movements often reflect that reality. Sustainable appreciation, if it occurs, is generally associated with continued improvements in productivity, investment, trade performance, and overall economic strength. For businesses operating in Vietnam, currency stability often provides important benefits. Predictable exchange rates can facilitate planning, investment decisions, and international trade activities. Excessive volatility, by contrast, can create uncertainty and increase costs for companies engaged in cross-border transactions. Looking ahead, investors will continue monitoring key indicators, including economic growth, inflation trends, export performance, foreign direct investment inflows, and central bank policy decisions. These factors are likely to provide more meaningful insight into the future trajectory of the Vietnamese dong than speculative rumors circulating online. While discussions about rapid revaluation continue to attract attention, mainstream economic analysis generally supports a more measured outlook. The possibility of gradual strengthening over time is viewed by many observers as more consistent with Vietnam's economic structure and policy framework. Such an outcome would reflect the cumulative effects of sustained growth, expanding international trade, rising investment, and continued economic modernization. Ultimately, the Vietnamese dong's future will be shaped by the same forces that influence currencies around the world: economic performance, investor confidence, monetary policy, trade dynamics, and global financial conditions. As Vietnam continues pursuing development goals and strengthening its position within the global economy, the dong is likely to remain a focal point for analysts, investors, businesses, and currency observers seeking to understand one of Asia's most dynamic emerging markets.